Well, good morning, everyone. I appreciate your time here this morning. Today we're going to talk about buyer's brokerage, and we're going to do that in three different parts. Right now is the first part, and my name is Rob Cassam. My company's Carolina Realty Advisors. You can get my contact information or see more about me and the services that we provide at www.charlottencproperty.com. So with that being said, let's get started with part one, and we're going to talk about buyer's brokerage and why anyone would want or need a buyer's agent. Really, that begs the question of how can you be sure that you don't pay too much for a property or buy a lousy property in a bad neighborhood and expose yourself or your family or business to undue stress and potential litigation, or even possibly waste your time in the process. And so that brings us to buyer's representation. A good buyer's broker should be able to help you avoid paying too much for the property. They should be able to help you avoid properties in the wrong areas. Most importantly, possibly, they should be helping you avoid numerous risks that are inherent with the property buying process. So if we look at this thing, let's talk a little bit more about common buyer pitfalls that I've seen out there over the years. The first one is lack of understanding about what type of property is really in play. What I mean by that is, are you working with a resale? Could it be new construction? Could be a possible short sale, which is a situation where the seller owes more on the property than what it's really worth. Or it could be a foreclosure or bank-owned property of various varieties, meaning HUD-owned properties, VA foreclosures, regular bank-owned properties, those types of things. The second thing that I see out there is a misunderstanding regarding bank-owned properties and how they're sold. And that goes back to the actual type of foreclosure that you're working with, because each entity has a little bit different way of selling these properties, and there's some big differences there that can potentially cost you a lot of money if you're not aware of them. The next one is lack of understanding with financing programs and lenders. This is a big one. If you're out there trying to buy property, the type of loan that you qualify for makes a huge difference, and it can make a big difference in whether or not you can even buy the property. And if you're not aware of it, you can get down the road and spend money on due diligence items, examinations, inspections, those types of things, and only to find out that the loan that you're working with won't work for that particular property. The next one here is the loss of earnest money due to poor contract management. And that can come into play whether it's a resale or a foreclosure. It doesn't really matter. There's terms and conditions in these contracts that gives the buyers different rights that come and go as time passes in the contract. And that's another important thing that you need to worry about. And then the final thing on this slide is closing delay penalties. Certain types of properties will have different types of delays or penalties inside of them that can result into as much as really $100 or $150 a day or more. Not understanding those is a big common mistake that buyers make oftentimes. As we continue here, the unclear understanding regarding what they're paying versus what's likely to happen in the neighborhood in the future. That's a huge one. Understanding where the market has been and where it's heading is a good exercise to engage in to try to determine whether or not you're buying in an up market, a down market, a flat market, just as an example. Serious title issues and mistakes is another huge thing that we see oftentimes, and that's largely a function of not using the right person to help you with your title exam in some of the issues that are associated with that, especially in a foreclosure. Limited time for proper due diligence. This one here is really comes into play with not negotiating the contract properly, or if you're working with a foreclosure, they're going to give you limited time for due diligence, meaning inspections and checking out the property. And then the fourth one here is the cost of doing business is not considered. I think a good buyer's broker should be telling people or advising them that if you're going to engage in a real estate transaction, there is a potential or a possibility that you could get a property under contract, start to do some due diligence, and then find out that the property is not going to be a good fit. And there's certainly a cost associated with that. It's not a huge one, but it's something that needs to be considered. And then the last one here is being penny wise and pound foolish. I know we've all heard that. What that means is really trying to save a few dollars in the name of exposing yourself to a disproportionate amount of risk. The big example that comes to mind rather, is someone that chooses to not have a survey completed when they buy their property, because there's a whole host of things that could be uncovered in a survey that that you would never know about if you choose not to do that. That's just one example. So the number one buyer pitfall that I see out there is that the buyer really doesn't understand who he's working with and the benefits of a competent and trusted advisor. And what I mean by that is oftentimes buyers make phone calls, call listing agents, call different companies to get information about property, and they inadvertently expose themselves to a little bit more risk than they should because they don't have anyone in their camp coming out of the gate that's really out there as an advocate to help them and represent their interest in the transaction. So you really have to ask yourself, what kind of broker do you want? If you don't want any broker, then you are on your own, obviously. If you choose to use a buyer's broker, obviously there's different skill sets out there. There's different types of folks that are out there. And, you really have to judge the seriousness of their professionalism by their experience and some of the things that they've done in the past. And whether they're part-time, for example, whether they're new to the business, how many transactions they've completed, what their focus and specialties are. I think those are all important things and questions that you need to ask yourself as to what kind of broker you really want to work with, if you choose to work with a buyer's broker at all. So with that being said, wrapping this portion up for today, if you need to get in touch with me, my contact information here is at this slide. My email address and website address and phone numbers are here. You can jot those down or pause this if you'd like to jot those down or go to my website. And with that being said, I appreciate your time and consideration, and I look forward